Hi there, travel lovers. It's your trusted cruise and Tauck tour expert, Shawn here. Hopefully you can hear me outside here today. Normally I do a lot of these videos from my office, but the sun is beaming in over on that side of the condo, and you can't see me. I'm pitch black with the sun on my face. So anyway, hopefully it works out here, and there's not too much background noise. But I wanted to go ahead and cover a cruise line today that I get a lot of questions about. I've literally helped my clients book millions and millions of dollars of their cruises over the years. Very popular cruise line that a lot of people look into when they first get out of the big ship, mass market cruises. And the cruise line I'm talking about today is Oceania Cruise Lines. Now, myself personally, I call them an upper premium cruise line. I'll put a link underneath this video to my categories of cruising blog post that I did a while back, where I talk about that there's big ship, mass market cruise lines. There's also small ship, luxury, all-inclusive cruise lines. And then I also talk about the upper premium lines that are kind of in between. And that's where Viking Ocean Cruises fits in, as well as Oceania Cruises, who again I'm going to talk about today. So like I said, Oceania is basically they're definitely a step up from the big ships. For starters, what's going to happen is the ships are going to be much smaller. So instead of going on the big ship, like Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Holland America, Princess or Celebrity, instead of going on these ships that fit 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 plus people, an Oceania ship at the most is going to fit 1,250 people. Some of their ships fit 700 people, actually 690 I think to be exact. I do recommend though, when I put my clients on Oceania, I like to get on those ships that are 1,200 and 1,250 guests, which are going to be like Marina, Riviera, Allura, Vista. It's because it's their newer ships with more restaurants, bigger rooms, that kind of stuff, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But basically, like I said, when you go on Oceania, you're going to get a smaller ship than the big ships. But like, let's say Oceania puts 1,200 people on a ship. Well, if you gave that same ship to Carnival or Royal Caribbean or someone, they're going to put at least 2,000, if not 2,500 people on there, because they're going to make smaller rooms. They're going to kind of jam-pack the public spaces a bit more. So even though Oceania, I don't know if that 1,200 sounds like a lot to you or not, in the cruising industry, it's not at all. When we start to get 3,000 to 4,000 and up is when you get to be a lot of people on board. But 1,200 is really considered pretty small these days. And especially, like I said, when you look at the public space on an Oceania ship, when you look at the bigger rooms, they're probably about 40% bigger than the 30 to 40% bigger than the average big ship cruise rooms. So like I said, there's just a lot of public space. Never any crowds. I've personally been on 4 Oceania cruises now, and I don't find that there's any crowds when you're, walking around the ship. If you go to the buffet or getting on and off the ship, it's very, very simple. So like I said, nice luxury feel, intimate size, kind of perfect. Now, where Oceania fits in really good as well is that, they do have the luxury, and again, I'll put the blog post underneath this video where I talk about the categories of cruising, but the luxury small ship, all-inclusive cruises, you've got Regent, Explorer, Silver Sea, Seabourn, Crystal. They're the cream of the crop, but they also cost a lot. A lot of those can be $800, $900, $1,000 per person per day or more just to get on board a lot of these cruises. So where Oceania fits in well, for people is it's just not going to be that expensive compared to the luxury lines, but it's still going to be extremely all-inclusive. So if you go on Oceania, for example, they're going to include all the, Wi-Fi is going to be included, all the non-alcohol, so your Cokes, your specialty coffees, your waters, that kind of stuff. There's going to be no charge for the specialty dining, which is great because, when you go on the big ships, I remember being on one of the big ship lines about a year ago, and I literally spent $800 in specialty dining. So you're not going to have that charge at all. There's no charge for, little things like, let's say the ship is 20 minutes from the main town, and Oceania will, put you on a free shuttle into town, whereas other cruise lines are charging $5 or $10 to get into town. Simple things like going to yoga class, Pilates class, spin class. Again, you're not going to pay for any of these things. So they don't nickel and dime you at all. Now, basically, you are going to pay for alcohol on board, but that's really the only thing. Gratuities are included, like I said, Wi-Fi, specialty dining, non-alcohol. So really, really inclusive, but not all-inclusive. So also maybe you're not a drinker, so maybe you don't want to go on Regent or Explorer or Silver Sea or Seabourn or Crystal, because your philosophy is I don't want to pay for other people's drinks if I'm not going to drink, and I get that. So Oceania could be a good fit for you as well there. So like I said, it's a nice step up from the big ships, but not quite as inclusive as the small luxury ships, and the rooms aren't quite as big as well. So because of that, the price is a little bit more, affordable for people who want to get away from those big ships. So you're not going to feel any nickel and diming at all when you're on board an Oceania Cruise, which is what people really love, because you know, I don't know about you, but again, I've been on almost 100 cruises, so I've done all the big ships many times. And you know, the last time I was on board over the last year, I've probably been on 2 or 3 big ships, and they are just selling more than ever these days. They're trying to sell you to go to the specialty dining. They're trying to sell you to upgrade to the drink packages, and on and on and on. They just sell, 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 and it gets a bit tiring after a while. So that's what a lot of my clients like on Oceania and everything that's above Oceania, is that, you know, you just don't get that nickel and you know, the nickel and diming feel. So that once you pay for your cruise, you pay for almost everything, again, except for the alcohol. And with that said, you know, if you book at the right time, sometimes they do have a perk where maybe they do have a drink package included. Or if you book through a travel agent like myself or your own travel agent, you're always going to get perks through us that you can't get directly when you book it through Oceania. So maybe that's some onboard credit that we can add to your booking, and then you can use that towards drinks. So really, when you factor that in, you know, it's almost a fully all-inclusive cruise. So again, no nickel and diamond at all. Um, One of the things that Oceania is known for, and I got to point out when I talk about Oceania, it's the food. And anyone who's been on Oceania knows what I'm talking about. They are known as the foodie cruise line. Um, they put more money into food than pretty much any other cruise line out there. Their newest ships, I think the stat is for every 10 guests, they have one chef. So, you know, very, very, very good food on board. Jacques Pepin, who's a famous French chef, he's, you know, basically run their program since they, you know, incepted almost 20 years ago. So like I said, their food is spectacular on board. You know, you go to the steakhouse and you can get, you know, these big, beautiful, you know, steaks that you would normally pay 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks on. The other ships, they're going to be included. I've had the Atlantic lobster, and I'm talking a full whole lobster where they literally cut the shell into. You don't even need to fuss with it. You just pick up the meat, and it's fabulous. You go to the, you know, the Italian place, and they bring out the cart where they got the different olive oils and the vinegars, and it's such a beautiful presentation. You go to the Asian place, Pacific Rim, and they let you pick your choice of chopsticks, and you know, just like fabulous presentation, fabulous food. Again, they put so much into it, and it's not just especially restaurants. You even go to the buffet, and they're serving like wagyu beef at the burger bar with lobster even. So they'll have like a surf and turf sandwich. You're just not going to find that when you go on the big ships. Speaking of lobster, I mean, pretty much every restaurant you go to on Oceania has some form of lobster. Again, that's almost gone by the wayside on the big ships. So again, there's lots of great food included. Really no food to pay for. And if you're a foodie, you literally can't go wrong in Oceania. And again, you're not going to feel nickel and dime at the end of the cruise because you're not paying for all that. You know, just to talk about what it feels like on board, even though this might sound luxurious to some people who've never done it, there's nothing at all pretentious about cruising on Oceania. Again, I've been on them 4 times. I mean, you'll see me here in just a casual collared shirt. I can have a shirt like this on with dark jeans and a nice pair of shoes or just a pair of casual pants. I'm going to fit in perfect. Now, maybe one night I'm going to the specialty dining and I want to throw on a sport coat. No problem. I'm not going to look overdressed. But you're not going to see, you know, tuxes and gowns and people all fancy. They pretty much call it like residential style luxury. You know, just think about, you know, anywhere where you live, where people are dressing nice. You know, they're not in ripped jeans and, you know, short shorts and all that. But again, you know, they look nice but not over the top. Of course, during the day, wear what you want. I mean, bathing suits and, you know, bikinis and, you know, shorts at the pool and everything else. You can wear, you know, track suits during the day, whatever. I mean, during the day is fine, but at night, like I said, collared shirt, pants, nice skirt and a shirt or a casual dress for the ladies, you're going to fit in fine. So nothing pretentious at all. Another thing you're going to find on these smaller ships is that the crew ratio is really good. So I think the stats are like when you look at the big ships, there's probably 1 crew member for about every 3 to 3.5 guests. You go on Oceania, it's more probably 1 for every 1.2 to 5 guests. Now that might not sound like a big deal. You may not even, you know, conceptualize what that means, but it just means that they're much more attentive on board. So I remember one of the first times I went on Oceania and I said to someone, you know, can you tell me where the closest washroom is? They didn't just point. They literally walked me to the washroom. And, you know, it's just little things like that because they have more time. You know, they're not as rushed. They're not taking, you know, as care of as many guests on the big ships. And you'll notice it right away. So again, you really get that feel that you're really being attended to. Again, you're not being rushed. And they're not selling like they are on the big ships. So it really makes a big difference. Another thing Oceania is known for, which attracts a lot of my clients, and I know a lot of people who cruise with Oceania, is they're very destination focused. So let's say you go to Europe and you do a 10-day cruise between, I don't know, Barcelona and Rome. Literally, for all those 9 days that you're sailing, they're stopping at pretty much 9 ports. They might do a sea day, but I've seen many itineraries where like all 9 days when they're sailing, port, 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 port. So it's very destination intensive. Now you go on a big ship, they're going to throw at least a few sea days in there because they want you on board to go to the casino and they want you on board to go to the shops. And that's their model, is to make money when you get on board the ship. Oceania's already charged you a little bit more money, so they don't need you to stay on board the whole time. They want you to stay in the ports and enjoy the destination, which is what we fly to places like Europe for. They also stay in port a bit longer. So you will notice, like, a lot of days they might leave at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night, whereas the big ships are taken off a lot of times by 4 or 5. Again, they want to get you back out to sea. They want to get you to the casino. They want to get you to the shops and all that kind of stuff so you can spend, spend, spend. So again, it's a very different, reason why you're on board. Yes, the big ships are going to see destinations, but they're also about having you on board and just having a lot of, fun and entertainment and spending and, kind of forgetting about it all, almost like going to Vegas or something. But again, Oceania and again, the even smaller ships, they're all about the destination. They're about spending as much time in the ports as possible and also going to places that the big ships don't. Because these ships fit 1,200 people or less, they can get to places that the big ships can't. So, again, when you do it for the first time, you'll understand a lot of what I'm talking about, but it makes a huge difference compared to if you've only ever been on big ships. It will feel very different when you get on a ship like an Oceania or maybe another upper premium cruise line like a Viking, for example. On board, they have culinary classes and art classes because, again, people just don't go to these for the destination and the ship. They also go to learn. They want to try new things. They want new experiences. So again, they really put a lot of effort into things like that. Now, so overall, obviously you can tell, I totally recommend Oceania. Great, great, great cruise line. Again, I've personally sailed on them 4 times. I've helped my clients book millions of dollars of cruises, on them, and everyone. I mean, literally, I have so many people who go with Oceania again and again. They love them, so I absolutely do love them. But there's probably a couple of reasons why you may not want to go on them. So let me cover that. So let's say that you just love nightlife. You like going to the clubs, and you want the dance and the techno music, and you want the comedy shows, and you want the multiple bars and stuff. Well, Oceania's not going to be for you. Now, don't get me wrong; they do have a show theater, but again, they may have, they'll probably have a couple of small Broadway-style shows. We're not talking 16 people. There's not a 16-person cast like there is on the big ships. There might be 4, 6, or 8 people just doing some casual Broadway shows. They'll have a lot of guest entertainers on board. There could be a comedian one night. There could be maybe some musician who's super talented on the piano or something like that. But the point is that you're not going to have the nightclubs. And yes, there's dancing and stuff on board, but again, it is not going to be a party on board. So if you're looking for the, really, really fun nightlife, go on Princess, Celebrity, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, whoever. So Oceania is not going to be for you. Also, if you're traveling with your family, now don't get me wrong, I have had people go on Oceania with young kids, and they allow it. Actually, let me just backtrack really quickly. You'll remember I said the other upper premium cruise line is called Viking Ocean Cruises. They don't allow kids. So you've got to be 18 or over to cruise on them. So if you don't want kids at all, go on Viking. You won't see a kid on board. Now, Oceania, in the 4 cruises I've been on, I don't know if I've seen 6 or 10 kids between all 4 of them. So most people don't bring their kids on board because there's not a lot to do. There's not rock climbing walls. There's no slides. They don't have the big kids program. So, if you're going to bring your child, make sure that they can entertain themselves. Maybe they read a lot of books or, play games or whatnot. But the point is that, they're not going to be entertained by the staff a whole lot. And also, you're not going to find a lot of other kids. So I just probably wouldn't recommend Oceania if you do have kids. Now, let's say you say, God, I do have kids, but I want like a high-level experience. Well, maybe go on Celebrity and stay in the retreat, which is like their suite area where they have the private pool, the private lounge, the private restaurant. You get a bigger room, but then you can bring the kids downstairs to the kids area, and they can mix and mingle with the other thousands on board. So again, there are things that you can do, to bring your family in a higher level. And, we can talk about that maybe in another video, or just message me and I'll explain more. But again, Oceania may not be good if you are going to bring your family. Now, a couple of last things here before we finish the video. One thing I tell people, now most of my clients who go on Oceania, they do stay in penthouses or up because they do like the bigger rooms. I mean, the penthouses on the newer ships are about 420 square feet off the top of my head. So basically, a lot of my clients want at least that, if not bigger. They'll go in the Oceania suite or, some of the bigger suites. But at the least, when you go on Oceania, I strongly, strongly suggest if you're going to just do a veranda room, which is about 280 square feet, absolutely do a concierge room. And the reason why I say that is because if you do a regular balcony room, remember I said that the specialty dining is free? Well, how it works on these newer ships where they have 4 restaurants is you get to go to one restaurant each. Or, you get to go to one night at each restaurant during the cruise, and you make reservations in advance. So what happens is people who stay in the owner suite and the Vista suite and the Oceania suite, they book first. Then people in the penthouses book next. Then people in the concierges book next, and then finally people in the regular verandas book next. Now, there's more regular verandas than anything else. So the point is that if you're not booking your dining till the very end in the regular verandas, I see this happen all the time because I hear colleagues talking about it. When I was on the ship, I hear people complain about it. But you're only going to get like 8, 8:30, 9 p.m. dining times at the specialty restaurants. That's it. Now, if you stay in a concierge room or above, like a penthouse or whatnot, you get to book earlier, and there's a really good chance if you book right away when the dining opens. Now, if I'm your travel agent, I'm going to remind you when the dining's open, and I'm going to say book right away. Hopefully, your own travel agent will do that, or if you're booking direct with Oceania, pay attention because the day the dining opens, you want to go in and book right away so that if you want to get that 6:30 or 7 o'clock time, you can do that. But again, you pretty much got to go with concierge or above. And then concierge rooms also come with other perks, like they'll do a few bags of laundry for you for free. You'll be able to go to the Aqua Spa Terrace, which is an area where they have like a nice hot tub area, heated beds, and it's just a beautiful area to hang out and relax, which normally costs $40 a person a day, but here it's going to be included in your price. So anyway, like I said, that's a couple of tips. And then just the last thing, if you like to do shore excursions, do keep in mind all the cruise lines these days are charging a lot for the excursions, and I find Oceania is maybe even a little bit worse than some of the other ones. So the point is that if you're comfortable going with other third-party companies, whether it's, I don't know, shoreexcursionsgroup.com or cruiseexcursions.com or viator.com or getyourguide.com or whatever, don't be afraid to use those guys if you're cruising with someone like Oceania, because you might have a tour that's $200 on Oceania, but it might be 120 or 130 with one of these other guys. So again, if you're comfortable doing that, go ahead and book with the third parties. So again, no crazy nightlife on Oceania, not great for families. And again, if you're gonna book, at the least do a concierge veranda or above, and book your dining immediately as soon as I let you know, or your own travel agent, or like I said, if you're booking directly, you got to pay attention to these dates. So beyond that, I will put some links below this video. I've got a recap of Oceania written. I'll put that down there. Maybe I'll even put links to my photo and video galleries from the 4 Oceania cruises I've been on, so you can see the ships and you can see the food and everything else I've tried. So anyway, hopefully that gives you a feel for what Oceania's like. Again, they are a wonderful cruise line. I know you will not be disappointed if you go with them. Any questions, leave a comment below or just contact me on my website, and I'll do my best to help you out. And we'll talk to you in the next video. Have a great day.